You told yourself it was over. You blocked the number. You packed the box. You walked out. And for 3 weeks, nothing. Then the message arrives. Not an apology, not a threat. A photograph of the two of you from a trip you almost loved, sent at 11:47 p.m. with no caption. And your whole nervous system fires like a starting gun. That message was not random. It was engineered. Tonight, you are going to learn exactly how and exactly what to do the moment it lands. Welcome to the Shadow Protocol, where we take the architecture of manipulation apart, piece by piece, and hand you the tools to defend your mind. If you have ever left someone you knew was harming you, only to be pulled back by a single message weeks or even months later, you are in the right place. Today we are dismantling hoovering, the recontact tactic named after the vacuum cleaner, because its whole purpose is to pull you back in. You will learn the 5 maneuvers a manipulator uses to reopen a door you already closed, why your own brain cooperates with them, what to do when going fully silent is not possible, and a 6-step protocol for holding your ground the moment a Hoover arrives. This analysis draws strictly from the clinical literature on coercive control, from research on trauma bonding, and from the behavioral patterns cataloged by domestic abuse intervention programs. Not from anecdote and not from outrage. Hoovering is a documented pattern, not a personal failing, and once you can name it, it loses most of its power. Start with one idea because it reorganizes everything that follows. When a manipulator comes back, they are not missing you the way you would miss someone. They are recovering an asset. Foundational work on coercive control describes this kind of abuse not as a series of isolated incidents, but as a sustained pattern, an ongoing campaign to control another person's life. Within that frame, your leaving did not end the campaign. It interrupted it. And an interrupted campaign does not grieve the way a person grieves a relationship. It looks for a way to re-engage. So when the message arrives, the question is not, do they still love me? The question is, what does this contact accomplish for them? Hold that question. It is the lens for everything that comes next. If this is already describing something you have lived, subscribe to the Shadow Protocol and hit like. New clinical analysis every week. Now let us walk through the tactic, one layer at a time. The first thing to understand is that the Hoover has timing. It is rarely random. A practiced manipulator reaches back when you are most reachable and least offended. We can name that interval. Call it the Hoover Window. The window opens on predictable dates, anniversaries, holidays, your birthday, the dead week between Christmas and the New Year. When everyone takes stock of their life, it also opens on signals. When you post that you are struggling, when a mutual friend mentions you are isolated, when your guard is visibly down. The manipulator is not necessarily plotting a calendar. They have simply learned over a long time when you are softest, and they move then. This is why the timing of a Hoover so often feels uncanny, as if they knew. In a sense, they did, not because they are psychic, but because the entire relationship was an education in your patterns. Your vulnerability was studied. The window is the proof. So the first defensive move is simply this. Mark your own windows before they arrive. If you know an anniversary is coming, you know the window is opening, and a message that would have ambushed you becomes a message you were expecting. A Hoover is not one move. It is a small toolkit, and most manipulators have a favorite. Here are the 5 you are most likely to see. Learn them as a set, because recognizing which one just landed is half of your defense. Maneuver 1. Nostalgia bombing. This is the curated good memory, dropped without context. The photograph from the trip, the song that was yours, a single line. I drove past our place today. It works by reaching past the record of harm and pulling one edited golden frame out of the wreckage. Your brain fills in the warmth. What it leaves out is everything that came after that photograph was taken. The nostalgia is real. The editing is the weapon. Maneuver 2, crisis baiting, a manufactured emergency designed to trigger your caretaking reflex. I'm in the hospital. Something happened. I didn't know who else to call. It's about your mother. The crisis may be exaggerated or invented outright. The point is not the emergency. The point is that an emergency overrides your boundaries before you have time to think and reopens a channel you had closed. A genuine emergency can be verified by someone other than the person in crisis. Hold that thought. It becomes a rule later. Maneuver 3. False reform. The promise of a changed person delivered before any evidence of change. I've been in therapy. I finally see what I did. I'm not that person anymore. These words can be moving, and occasionally they are even sincere in the moment they are spoken. But words are a claim, not a proof. Reform is measured in changed behavior over time, observed from a safe distance, not in a paragraph sent at midnight. When the only evidence of a new person is the testimony of the old one, the counter still reads 0. Maneuver 4. Proxy deployment. When they cannot reach you directly, they send others. A mutual friend who just wants to check in, a family member who says, they really are a mess, the message is the same. Only the carrier has changed, which is what makes it slip past your defenses. We will give the recruited proxy tactic its own full analysis later in the series. For now, know only this. If a third party starts carrying messages or pressure on the manipulator's behalf, that is not coincidence. That is maneuver 4. Maneuver 5. Future faking used as bait. This is the manipulator dangling the future you actually wanted, the wedding, the move, the version of them you waited years for. Held out now, the moment you are finally leaving, precisely because you are leaving. Future faking is a large enough tactic to deserve its own analysis, and it has one coming. As a Hoover, its job is narrow. It offers a painted door at the exact moment you reach the real one. Now the hardest part to accept. When a Hoover lands and you feel yourself pulled, that pull is not weakness, and it is not a sign that you were wrong to leave. It is your own neurobiology being used against you. Let us be precise about how. When you leave, you begin rebuilding something we have called psychological sovereignty, the capacity to define your own reality, set your own terms, and trust your own read of events. That rebuild is slow, and it is fragile in the early weeks. The Hoover does not have to demolish it. It only has to interrupt it. Clinical models of coercion describe it as a demand paired with a credible threat, repeated until the target's response becomes automatic. Over the length of a relationship, that pairing builds a conditioned reflex. A single familiar cue, a tone, a phrase, a photograph, can reactivate the entire learned response without a single conscious thought. The Hoover is built from exactly those cues. It is a key cut to fit a lock the manipulator installed in you over months or years. What you experience in that moment is what we call cognitive shrinkage. Your field of view collapses. The long pattern of harm, the reasons you left, the life you are building, all of it goes dim and far away, and the only thing left lit is the person in front of you. Threat detection goes offline exactly when you need it most, because the attachment signal is flooding the same circuitry. This is not a character flaw. It is a hijack. And if you have watched our analysis of the idealized devalue discard cycle, here is the one-line connection. The Hoover is that cycle attempting to restart at the top, dragging you back to idealization so the whole loop can run again. The good news is structural. A conditioned response is strongest at the moment of the cue and fades if it is not fed, which means the entire game is time. If you can hold through the window without responding, the pull recedes on its own. Everything in the protocol we are about to build is designed to buy you that time. If this is giving you language for something you could feel but never name, that is exactly what this channel is for. Take one second to like this video and subscribe to the Shadow Protocol. It genuinely helps this analysis reach the next person who needs it, maybe at 11:47 at night, staring at a message they do not know how to answer. Now let us talk about what to do when going completely silent is not an option. Most advice assumes you can simply go, no contact. Block everything, disappear, never look back. And when that is possible, it is the cleanest defense there is. But for many people, it is not possible. You share children, you share a workplace or a lease or a family or a friend group you are not willing to lose. The door cannot be fully closed. So we change the goal. If you cannot reduce contact to 0, you reduce its surface area. Call this the minimal surface protocol. The principle is simple. Every open channel is a Hoover vector. every app where they can message you, every mutual friend who will pass and wish you how they're doing, every shared calendar, every comment section. Each one is a door the Hoover can come through. You may not be able to close all of them, but you can close most of them, and you can route the few that must stay open through a single, controlled, documented channel. For co-parents, that might be one parenting app, used for logistics only in writing, where every message is on the record. For a shared workplace, it might be email, copied to a neutral party, about work and nothing else. The goal is not coldness for its own sake. The goal is that there is exactly one way in. It is narrow, it is documented, and it carries logistics rather than emotion. There is one situation that makes this much harder, and it deserves naming directly. When your ex is embedded in your community or your chosen family, the Hoover does not need to message you at all. It rides in through shared friends, shared venues, the same handful of apps you cannot leave without losing your people too. The smaller and more tightly knit the community, the more contact surface the Hoover has, and the wider your Hoover window effectively becomes. If that is your situation, and the minimal surface protocol is not about disappearing. It is about deciding in advance which people and spaces will carry messages and which will not, and telling the carriers plainly that you are not accepting relayed contact. We will go deeper on no contact itself and the specific neuroscience of why your brain fights the very distance that heals it in a dedicated analysis. The card for it is waiting at the end of this video. So a Hoover lands, the photograph, the crisis, the apology that is not yet earned. Your nervous system fires. What do you actually do in that minute before the pull makes the decision for you? You run a protocol. We call it anchor, because that is its job, to hold you in place while the current pulls. 6 steps. Acknowledge the activation, not the message. The first move is internal, and it is the most important. Name what is happening in your body before you react to the words on the screen. My nervous system just fired. That is data about me. It is not an instruction about them. The activation is real. It is also not a verdict on whether you should go back. Name the maneuver. Which of the 5 just landed? Was that nostalgia bombing, crisis baiting, false reform? The instant you label it, you have moved the event out of the part of your brain that floods and into the part that thinks. Naming is not a trick. It is a switch. Contain the window. No response inside 24 hours. None. A Hoover loses most of its force if it is not answered while the queue is hot, and almost nothing in your life genuinely requires a reply to that person in the next day. The one exception is a real emergency, and a real emergency can always be verified through a neutral third party. Never by reopening direct contact to check. Hold your exit narrative. This is the step you prepare in advance. Before you ever need it, write down the real reasons you left, in your own words, in plain detail, while your head is clear. Then, when a Hoover has you doubting your own memory, you do not argue with the doubt. You reread the document. It is testimony from the version of you who saw clearly, delivered to the version of you who is being flooded. One-way information flow. If contact genuinely cannot be avoided, then information moves on your terms only. Logistics go out. Nothing about your inner state, your plans, your healing, or your new life flows back in. A manipulator cannot use what they cannot see, and every detail you surrender is material for the next Hoover. Re-anchor to your reference community. Within the hour, reach one person in your support network. Say, I got a message, and I'm not responding. The Hoover works by isolating you with the pull. You break it by refusing to be alone with it. Connection is the counter move to the entire tactic. Acknowledge, name, contain, hold, one way, and re-anchor. 6 steps you can run from memory while your hands are shaking. You do not have to win an argument. You do not have to convince them of anything. You only have to anchor and outlast the window. 3 things to carry out of this. First, a Hoover is a resource recovery operation, not a reunion. The question is never, do they love me? It is, what does this contact accomplish for them? Second, the pull you feel is conditioned neurobiology, not weakness. And like any conditioned response, it fades if you do not feed it. Third, you do not have to be persuasive or cold or even certain. You only have to contain the window and anchor until the current passes. The message will probably come. Maybe it already has. When it does, you now know its name. You know which maneuver it is, and you know the 6 steps. That is the difference between being pulled back and watching the pull go by. The strongest defense against the Hoover is the distance it is trying to erase. We made an entire analysis on exactly that. Why your brain fights no contact even when it is saving your life, and how to hold the distance anyway. It is on screen now. Watch that next. Name it, and it loses its power. We will see you in the next briefing.